So when you come up to read, just right in front of the center bookshelf here, and that way you'll be on camera. All right. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. So we're here because we just put out the third aois21 annual fabulous compendium of work. We started the call for authors back in July when we opened it up to previous submitters who were put in, and then we ended up getting even more coming in when we opened up full submissions in August. We have 20 works of poetry, 4 short stories, 1 essay, and 6 works of photography, 6 works of art. Plus this year, we decided to do it as electronic only with the magazine, so we are able to add video and audio as well. So 2 of the poetry works we have are actually spoken word audio files. And then we have my introduction at the front of the magazine is a video this year instead of a long typed out rambling piece of dribble. And then at the very end, I put on another video file at the end. So, I mean, all in all, trying to make the literary magazine something more, because now with the use of e-readers, with the changing likes of the reading community in the 21st century, trying to make it a different experience. So, of course, obviously that means if we have video and audio, that does not transition over to a print version, but we decided, of course, not to do a print version this year, both because of the cost, but also this opportunity that focusing on the electronic version really allowed us. Because in years past, we put so much time and attention laying out the print edition that when we're done, we just kick it out into a PDF with, you know, really nothing much to it. And it's difficult. We actually had 0 sales of the electronic annual as the flat PDF, but already having the new optimized EPUB that we have with the annual this year, we've already had a few sales. So it's already been more successful than the previous 2 annuals, at least in the electronic avenue. So it does kind of make the challenge of tonight. Here we are in this wonderful bookstore, and thank you to our generous host, Pablo Sierra, owner here of Walls of Books. Did I say that right?
You said everything.
Okay, good. You just look confused then.
Oh, no, yeah. Generous and Pablo.
Okay. And we're having this event for the readings and launching of this annual, but we don't have print copies for sale. But we do have copies of the previous annuals. The ones for 2014, 2015 are here, as well as many of our other great aois21 titles. So, like I said, this event is being live streamed on Periscope, and after tonight, it'll be saved to the aois21 YouTube channel and then linked to our website. So you'll be able to have your work out there shared at an even wider scope than just being in the magazine itself. And of course, all the contributors got their the link to download their own free copies of the annual. You should have, Ian.
We'll talk later.
We'll talk later, okay. And so that they have their copies, which they could share with friends and family. And of course, from this week only, it's available for $5 on the aois21 market. Starting this weekend, it will switch to $6. And it's also available on Amazon, though not as great of an optimized version there, because Amazon did not port in the video and audio, which was very disappointing when I saw that output from them. But it is also on Google Play and, of course, iBooks, because the annual was created in iBook Author, so it's fully optimized to work with an iPad or just any e-reader that processes EPUB files, which is basically everything except the Kindle. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring up our first reader. Jim, you want to go first?
No.
Okay. Ian, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay, so our first reader is one of our creators, Mr. Ian Roberts, author of the novel Nos Papias. Come on up. Sorry. He had a short story printed in this year's annual called Morning Commute. He's not going to read the whole thing, so we're not putting you to sleep with the whole story. Not that it would put you to sleep.
I was about to say, man.
It's
Harsh.
Sorry, it's late.
Okay. Give me a signal for me when to stop. Or...
It's whatever, as much as you're comfortable with.
Because it's, I'm going to go to full frame, but whatever you think is a good place to stop.
Okay.
Thank you. If anyone can't hear me, just tell me to start shouting. Here we go. Morning commute. Somebody had better be dead up there. Nicholas thought to himself as he poked his head out the car window. It was not the most charitable sentiment that had ever passed through his mind, but the bar for such things tends to drop when one is stuck in traffic, as Nicholas was and had been for the last 30 minutes? 40? He pulled his head back through the window and decided not to think about it too hard. Figuring it out is not going to make you happier. Inching south on Eldon Street, he spotted a variable message sign, part of one anyway. Most of it was obscured by the gray sedan in front of him, and its electronic words remained irritatingly out of sight. As Nicholas crept the car forward, moving more slowly than he would have believed possible, he wondered to himself how he knew what those signs were called. It was not something he ever remembered learning, not in school, not on the internet, and yet there it was, taking up real estate in his head, probably knocking out something important. Why can't I remember Mom's birthday? Several yards down the road, he could finally read the VMS, propped up near the corner of 32nd and Eldon. Founders Day Parade, the words blinked at him. Expect delays. No further information, no alternate routes, nothing. The fact that the VMS had refused to elaborate bothered him. But it was the last bit that really had his head throbbing. Can you expect something you're already experiencing? It was a sort of philosophical riddle the brain entertains when it needs to be kept from screaming. After the 32nd Street light finally turned green, the gray sedan pulled up 6 feet, its nose now well into the intersection, just in time for the light to go red again. Nicholas pulled up 7 feet, stopping inches short of scratching the sedan's bumper, and then they both began to wait again. Nicholas turned on the radio and flipped through a handful of stations, each featuring static. This was not unusual for morning rush hour on this side of the bay, but today was more frustrating than usual, and he shut it off. He suddenly needed a nap. It would have been more productive than sitting in traffic, his ankle cramping as it exercised the brake pedal over and over. When are those self-driving cars coming? He quickly dismissed that thought. First, because those things will probably require the driver to take over in an emergency, rendering naps impossible. So what's the point? Second, because even if they worked, he wasn't getting one. They might be all the rage on the West Coast by now, but no self-driving car was coming to New Rotterdam anytime soon. This was his own fault, a part of his brain tried to tell him as the light mercifully turned green. Eldon Street was molasses on a good morning. He could have taken Harlem, even if it meant rolling through Cauley Park. Nicholas hated going through Cauley Park, not least because it took him too close to Hull's Junction, a place that was explicitly forbidden for feds. And with pretty good reason. The gray sedan took a hard right onto 29th Street, which was a one-way street, as Nicholas knew from experience. The sedan was headed the wrong way, although it was unclear to Nicholas whether he was aware of that. But as Nicholas pulled up to the sedan's spot, he heard off to his right. A pair of loud horns shouted at each other, back and forth, answering his question. His own fault, Nicholas mused again, indulging the devil on the other shoulder. How? The VMS back at 32nd hadn't been there yesterday. It must have materialized overnight. If it had been there earlier, he could have plotted another route downtown. But things only happen in New Rotterdam when they absolutely need to happen. He looked at his phone, sitting on the passenger seat. He could use it to find some traffic reports. The signal would be slow, of course, but he had time to wait. And he had just begun to reach for the phone when the traffic started up again. I'll check again later. 26th Street, Nicholas rolled up his windows. That wouldn't be necessary for a few more yards, but he had learned that if he didn't have his car shut tight as he passed by the busted sewage line, his car would reek of human waste for several blocks afterward. He rolled his eyes as he passed the gaping hole that had been spewing toxic vapors for the last few weeks, the result of a botched pothole repair. Things like this are supposed to happen south of the river. His agency had responded by evacuating a couple of nearby buildings and then placing an almost comical amount of cones and caution tape and written warnings about the danger. And that would have to do until a more serious attempt could be made. By 23rd Street, traffic had lightened some, with some of the parade prep behind him, and other cars splitting off of Eldon into the rest of downtown. Ahead of him, the clouds looked bad. Not quite black, but ominous enough. During his orientation, they had been told that strong, sudden rains had a chilling effect on the residents of New Rotterdam. The fear, the speaker had called it, a collective triggering of bad memories. Nicholas had laughed until she glared at him with a look that was something between irritation and empathy. It sounds insane, she had admitted, but you'll see it soon enough. And he had. You could always tell the locals when the skies opened up, the way their muscles tensed, the way their pupils dilated, the way their heads would swivel this way and that, as though they were looking for higher ground. A cacophony of horns interrupted his trance. He was on 20th Street, trapped in the intersection. The resulting orchestra was attempting to get him to quit blocking the box, turning his embarrassment into anger, and a little defiance as well. He wasn't quite sure how they expected him to correct his mistake. See, the red SUV behind him had already occupied the only space he might conceivably back into, and it wasn't moving, probably because it was too busy honking at him. Nicholas stomped on the accelerator until he was within centimeters of the car in front of him. He was still almost completely inside the box, but at least he had taken action. The horns quieted a little.
Yeah. You want to keep going, or?
Couple more groups?
Sure.
What city of this size has a Founders Day anyway, Nicholas wondered. He recalled a semi-rural town in Virginia, West Virginia maybe, that he had driven through one summer morning a few years back. The residents, nice people, near as he could tell, were gearing up for a 4th of July, Founders Day, Civil War, something or other. It was a small town, maybe 4,000 people. That was a good number for a town to have Founders Day, Nicholas decided. Big cities celebrate other events. With 4,000 residents, though, a city is naturally going to be a little old-fashioned, even quaint. New Rotterdam, on the other hand, was a city of 368,000. Last year, this sort of thing would have seemed stranger to him, back when the population number closer to 530,000.
All right. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. And go Cubs, go.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Like I said, he's one of our creatives at aois21. You can get his book, Nos Populus, available everywhere ebooks are sold and in print from Amazon.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I say it's a good book. Yeah, it's a political thriller. And in fact, you could even get it here at Wallace Books. We have it on the shelf right here. And up the street at Upshur Street Books as well. So, and as well as out in Leesburg, Virginia at Books and Other Found Things. So now I'm going to have some poetry. So I'd like to invite up Mr. William C. Blome. He's one of our contributors this year. Just to read bio quick. William C. Blome writes poetry and short fiction. He lives in the states wedged between Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and he is a master's degree graduate of Johns Hopkins University writing seminars. His work has previously seen the light of day in such fine little mags as Amarillo Bay, Prism International, Fiction Southeast, Roanoke Review, Salted Feathers, and the California Quarterly. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. William C. Blome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'll just read, these aren't too long, and I had the honor of having 3 appear in aois21, so I'll read these. This one is to the memory of Palmiro Togliatti. Palmiro Togliatti was the leader of the Italian Communist Party from 1927 to his death in 1964. He was, at the time, a rather independent communist leader, not taking a strict toe-the-line approach from Moscow, and he was a journalist by profession. Begin this with a little epigram from one of his writings. We have succeeded in understanding that the activity of the party and of the laboring masses is not a revolutionary gymnastics, but a concrete activity which, arising from real conditions of life, by engaging them, changes them. Peeking from behind a concrete fountain and craving to swallow the soapy water pouring from women washing themselves after a day of pulling vegetables off green plants in terraced fields. My pal and I left and daylight collapsed in darkening shrouds around us, so much so that when we broke cover and skipped over there, we didn't find a single pubic hair, though we thought there would be hundreds interwoven in the drain. This poem is called Near Santo Domingo. Burgundy bulls that got that way from lapping the menses of wife number 1 when she picnicked too long in a pasture we drove by a bit ago. Lights flickered for weeks in Santo Domingo, and no one running the streets in aois could be even partially trusted. No victims, no friends, no perpetrators. Drive on for 5 more miles or until the canning plant is on your left, and 2 hills of green and red mangoes appear on the opposite side of the road. Sometimes a coloratura is out and about, standing between the hills and singing so high and so loud you can hit the horn in your brakes for all they're worth and still not be able to drown her out. And then this one, azalea bonsai. Forget the lavender sachet snagged in your vagina, a constitution, and softly whimpering carburetors. When stacks of poker chips fall down, when porch screens pile up like abandoned pallets, and when corgis get costumed to look like trolls, methinks a bell tower can bang out time's easy code, and you and I are ready to haul ass home. I, for one, count on our front door being a newly painted white, and if we choose to open it, smart money's probably nearby and yelling, "It's locked tight, motherfuckers, tight as your daughter used to be," and we're all kinds of opposed to the likes of you, trying to lean in and press against it. Azalea bonsai best display indoors on low alcoves whose edges have been covered in natural wood. A tree must always be placed off-center on its stand and never entirely within the alcove. Blossoms in their shiny colors must be perceived as black and white from a truly overwhelming distance. And above all, keep your bonsai turned away from impinging sources of lust and love. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Blow. Before we get to the next reader, I want to bring up this Saturday, aois21 Publishing will be taking part in the National Walk to End Alzheimer's. It'll be a 3-mile walk on the National Mall, and several members of the aois21 staff have signed up to walk, including not only myself, but our editor-in-chief, Corey Parker, and one of our creatives, Mr. Michael B. Judkins, will be in town and will be walking with us. So we're a little bit short of our goal, so welcome if anyone wants to make a contribution tonight towards the walk. It will guarantee the money raised tonight will go entirely to the walk, as we help to make people aware of the scourge that is Alzheimer's disease and help fund research and testing in order to helpfully bring down what is the 6th most common cause of death in the United States. So now we're on from that. So okay, so now Jim, will you prepared to speak?
Yes.
All right, so next up is Mr. James D. King. He's one of our creatives, author of the Hive series, with Hive First Contact coming out last fall. It's a sci-fi thriller, followed by the sequel this fall, Hive Battle of the Dog Star, both in available, and of course co-author of the Ippy Award-winning Ghost Burglar, which came out in 2013. So please welcome Mr. James D. King to read his short story, Haint Witch.
Okay. I'm only going to do part of it.
Okay.
Oops. Haint Witch is what's called flash fiction story. It's a rather short story, set in approximately 1920s Louisiana, swamps and bayous. I'm going to start in the middle. It's about a woman who becomes a witch to seek revenge against a man who done her wrong. After some time, the wanderlust came over Big Tom again. One night, he snuck off in that pole boat he had drifted in on. That's when Juju began to change. While she raised her girl baby all by herself, she learned what she could about spells and talking to evil spirits. Then she planted a garden of morning glories. These weren't no regular morning glories, but the swamp kind that grow fast and strong. She'd mix magic potions and feed it to them morning glories, and then she'd put Big Tom's chair right in the middle of that garden. Morning glories are twining flowers. They put out vines that latch on and grow up around anything nearby. Juju put up poles around that chair and made those vines climb up those poles until the chair sat in a little house of purple and white flowers. But she never let them vines grow around that chair. Then she started casting spells to bring Big Tom back. Every night, by the light of the moon, she talked to ghosts and cast the spells they told her to. The power of her spells kept getting stronger. She must have known what was coming because she took her baby girl to Lulu's place and left her there. One day, Big Tom returned, and he was under a spell. He came up the bank and sat in his chair like he used to do. Juju brought him a cool drink. He drank it without even noticing her. Then he slept. She stayed there, saying spells that the spirits had taught her. Them morning glories stirred, and them vines grew fast. In the morning, when Big Tom woke up, he couldn't move. His arms and legs was wrapped around with them swamp morning glories. Juju was just sitting in front of him. He yelled to be let go, but she said he would never leave her again because he belonged to her forever. Big Tom cursed, and then he pleaded, and then he cried. Juju sat there like a cat watching them vines grow around him.
Thank you, Jim. All right. So next up, I'd like to invite up Dr. Dorothy Saylor, the author of our sole essay in this year's annual. Dr. Saylor is Professor Emerita of English at Northern Virginia Community College. She holds degrees from William & Mary, Columbia University, and SUNY at Albany, and is the author of 10 college textbooks, including the well-used Read, Reason, Write. Her book on William Banks, The Obelisk and the Englishman, The Pioneering Discoveries of Egyptologist William Banks, was published in May 2015 by Prometheus.
And I'm happy once again to talk about my current favorite subject, William John Banks, early 19th century British traveler. Last year, I was fortunate enough to have an article selected that focused on Banks's discovery of the Abydos king list, his copy of that, and his copy of other hieroglyphs which he brought back to England, which contributed greatly to the decoding of the hieroglyphs. He's a figure who should be better known. I mean, if you read Wikipedia, you learn that there was, of course, the Rosetta Stone that made the discovery possible. And that is absolutely nuts, as anyone who would think about it for about 5 seconds would realize there's not enough text there to break through into a language that you have no other avenue into. Now, obviously, there were grammar texts in the library in Alexandria, but they all burned down. I mean, the Greeks didn't know hieroglyphs; they had to learn it, so they certainly had grammars. But unfortunately, when you get to 1815, nobody has that information. This year, I pulled out material that makes a nice story all on itself, and that's Banks's rather fascinating and certainly challenging trip to what we call the lost city of Petra also referred to as the Rose Red City. Both are applicable. Of course, Petra was not lost to the Bedouin tribes who lived in the area. They knew exactly where it was. This was the old Nabatean capital with the most marvelous fortification. The entranceway is about this wide, and it's really kind of a valley within a hill. So it was a great place for the Nabateans. They, of course, provided caravan services for a price, needless to say. But it was lost to the Western world. Now, the Western world knew the Roman records that indicated that this city existed, but they couldn't find it. Banks is the second European to finally get to Petra. The first was a Swiss fellow by the name of John Burckhardt, whom Banks met in Cairo. Burckhardt was traveling incognito as a sheikh with special knowledge of the Quran, and he could not display his excitement at what he thought he had found because his Arab guides would have killed him instantly. His cover would have been blown. But he tried to write down some guidelines as to where it might have been, and he encouraged William to make that trip. In William's first trip to what was called at the time Palestine and Syria, now of course it's also Lebanon and Jordan. Petra is in southern Jordan today. William was unable to get there. He could find no one who would give him permission for free access of Furman, a passport of sorts. He could find no guides who would take him there. He had to come back a second time rather than going home, feeling that his work had not been finished in Syria and perhaps not even in Egypt. He would eventually go back for a second trip up the Nile as well. But this time when he was in Syria, he was determined that he would get to Petra. He applied for these firmans, first of all in Constantinople on his way back, then in Jerusalem and elsewhere. And people either said, we don't know what you're talking about, we have no record that there is such a place as Petra, or in one case, we're talking now about the rulers in, quote unquote, in these various communities throughout Syria that are placed there by the Ottoman Empire, hence Constantinople first. And they were also told, William and his group of 3 other British gentlemen who were traveling, who went with him, were told that it was so dangerous that, in fact, the governor, if you will, of Jerusalem refused to let 2 of the British travelers keep the horses he had lent them if they were going to proceed to Petra. He was quite certain he would never get his horses back. And so they had to buy horses before they could take this trip. So they set off on their own with their servants, a group of 12, dressed very simply in Arab robes with their gold coins in money bags below the robes. They even took on Arab names as if that was going to disguise them in some way. William Banks had auburn curly hair. He had, of course, grown a beard while abroad, but he still had fair skin and blue eyes and so on and so forth. He was obviously not going to convince anybody, but they did this. They managed eventually to find a Bedouin tribe whom they convinced to provide guides. But they still had to face the challenge when they got close to Petra of the Bedouin tribe living in the Wadi Musa area, the Musa River there, which is still, it's not much of a river, but a stream in the little town of Petra outside of the historic area. And there was a much huffing and puffing and 4 days spent, whether we will go through or whether we will have a battle. The Bedouins who were guiding William and his crowd set for reinforcements, and it really looked as if it was going to be quite a problem for them. This was extremely dangerous. Now, I was delighted to come up with the title of this chapter, Packed for Petra, Paint Boxes and Guns. And there is a record of all the guns. They actually listed, the blunderbuss and so many muskets and so on and so forth. They were really loaded with guns. Again, not looking very much like casual Arab travelers in the area. But that was how dangerous it was. Finally, William was able to really pull a trick on the Bedouins and convince them that he actually had papers that were written in Turkish, which they couldn't read, but decided that this must be legitimate. And that way, of course, the tribal leader of the Bedouins in the Wadi Musa area kept his honor intact, and they backed off and let the group come in. Still, the Arabs guiding William and his group were so fearful, the others are up there on the ridge watching them the whole time, that they were allowed to stay there only 2 days. William is frantically running around sketching, he did the first drawings of Petra that were available to the west. Not noticed right away because he kind of disappeared from history for a while. Excuse me. But especially his drawing of the Kasne, this central temple that you first see as you come through this opening and it begins to widen, which is really a very dramatic moment in your trip to Petra. That sketch is absolutely marvelous and is one of the signature documents that we have from William Banks's work and his explorations. What also fascinates me is the attempt to describe this experience. This appears in the work of the 2 British naval captains who joined William and who commented in their writing that he probably could not have taken this trip entirely by himself, with just a couple of servants, that he really would have likely have been killed by the Bedouins. But with a group of 12, and he was clearly the leader of this group. This began to look like a tribe, another group that you should honor. And of course, they also had gifts to give as well. So Irving and Mangel's right that he couldn't have done it by himself, but it was certainly his idea, and probably nobody else could have done this, could have put the group together and managed to make this happen without Banks's planning. But this is the description of the awesome entrance into Petra. It is impossible to conceive anything more awful, the old use of the word, or sublime than such an approach. The width is not more than just sufficient for the passage of 2 horsemen abreast. The sides are in all parts perpendicular, varying from 400 to 700 feet in height. The screaming of the eagles, hawks, and owls, who were soaring above our heads in considerable numbers, seemingly annoyed at anyone approaching their lonely habitation, added much to the singularity of the scene. The ravine, without changing much in general direction, presents so many elbows and windings in its course, to which the track of necessity conforms, that the eye can seldom penetrate forward beyond a few paces. This is absolutely true if you have been to Petra. You really can't see anything as you walk down this about a mile trek in between these perpendicular walls, and you wonder what you're going to see and if you're going in the right direction. And is often puzzled to distinguish in what direction the passage will open. Yes, that's very true. We followed this sort of half-subterranean passage for the space of nearly 2 miles. It's a slight exaggeration. The sides increasing in height as the path continually descended, while the tops of the precipices retained their former level. Where they are at the highest, a beam of stronger light breaks in and opens to view, half seen at first through the tall, narrow opening, columns, statues, and cornices of a light and finished taste, executed in a stone of a pale rose color. We know not with what to compare the scene. Perhaps there is nothing in the world that resembles it. Have any of you been to Petra? It's now on the tour, as it were. You know, you can usually get extensions if you go to Egypt. You can spend an extra couple of days in Petra. It is well worth the trip. It is a marvelous, marvelous experience to see how they built this little city in this hidden valley, and to walk down. And you notice that it is always descending. You don't. It's very gentle. You don't notice it. But if you do this in the summertime on a hot day, and you're finished touring the place, you have to come back up what's called the Sig. You have to come back up this passageway. And you see everyone struggling as they walk up. Of course, there are horse-drawn chariots if you have to resort to that, but most people try to make it up on their own. It is a marvelous place to visit. I encourage you to do so. But it was opened up by my beloved friend William John Banks, a fellow that I just find absolutely fascinating and wish more people would know about. He's just a great figure from history. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Saylor. Now,
It is Seiler.
Oh, Seiler.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
a German name. aois21.
Okay, sorry. All right, now that's it for the readings. But before we go, I want to invite up our gracious host, Mr. Pablos here, owner of Walter
Gracious.
Books.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I know for some it's probably a trek. So be safe driving home tonight. But again, thanks for coming out. I'm really enjoying this partnership with you guys. Coming in every 3-4 weeks or so with different writers, listening to the great stories, listening to great poetry, putting it out there, getting some stuff on the shelves, get sold, and have you guys be seen. I really,
You have a
really
terrific
it.
bookshop.
Well, thank you.
Indeed,
Thank you
yes.
very much. It's we're getting there. And I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you for that. And it's filled with great books and writers, but a lot of it is events like these, where I can bring people together of stuff that I probably would not have gone out and tried to search on my own, but now I hear it and I'm like, man, that's really interesting. That's really enjoyable. So I think that's a key to learning, right? You sort of like, it expands your mind a little bit. So I appreciate that. Like I said, there's a bookstore, used bookstore. Most of it's secondhand. We have a great trade-in program. So if you guys, have books, you want to bring them in store credit, get more books. We have a lot of events coming up for the fall and for winter. We have, I know we have another reading this Saturday at 2. We have a creative writing group every Thursday at 7. We got a lot of kids story times Wednesdays and Saturdays. So we're trying to do it all here. You know what I mean? Try to hit all the people in the community and in DC in general. So whether it's our events, programs, books, and just some nice comfortable couches, we hope you guys come back, and I hope so. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps it up. Now, we'll be back here on Saturday at 2 o'clock for poet Michael B. Judkins coming into town. He'll be here to do a performance from his book, Interlude to Sentimental Me. He's also going to be on Friday night in Leesburg, Virginia at Books and Other Found Things for Leesburg First Friday. Saturday morning, we have the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So if you haven't yet or so inclined, please feel free to support us as we truly do our best to try to take out Alzheimer's as best we can. Next week, next Saturday, is the Western Maryland Independent Literature Festival in Frostburg, Maryland. We'll be there all day for that. And then, of course, we'll have more events coming up. We have the DC Author Festival at the MLK Library coming up on November 2nd. Poet Bianca Palmisano will be presenting, as she is one of the DC residents among our authors. So she'll be doing a live reading of her poetry. Her second book of poetry, Will This Be on the Final, is currently available for pre-order, and it comes out on sale on October 11th, so next Tuesday. Otherwise, thank you very much. This video will be posted on our YouTube channel after the fact, and we'll share it with all of our contributors. And I'm so gracious that, once again, we put out the call to contributors, and the world answered. We got some great poetry, some great short stories. I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for my staff, our editor-in-chief, Corey Parker, who has read every single thing that's been put in our annual 3 years running. And he's done a tremendous job, not only his own work in editing, but also the editors that he's brought on board that have been able to work with our authors at no charge for the contributors. We do full editorial review. So thank you to Corey, and thank you to my other members of my staff, our webmaster Joshua Silverman, our creative adjacent Adam Wallach, whose photography appears in this year's annual, including on the front cover, and as well as some other staff members, our designers, our editors. I'm very thankful for everything they've done with us this past year. And more to come in the year to come. Submissions for next year's annual open August 1st. So if you want to get something in next year's annual, circle it on the calendar, August 1st next year. We take everything regardless of genre. Well, we don't take everything, of course. And as usual, we're looking for poetry, we're looking for short stories, essays, photography, art. We now have video and audio acceptable. The key thing is, when you send it to us, it can't be already in somebody else's magazine, it can't be on your blog, it has to be first to us. And of course we expect that if you're sending it to us, it's also not being submitted to other magazines or sites at the same time. So, but thank you very much to our contributors, thank you to my staff, and our overall supporters. This literary magazine started with a Kickstarter campaign 2 years ago, and this last year's was also funded by a second Kickstarter campaign. I'm very grateful for those people that supported those campaigns. Their names are listed in the back of the annual online, so I'm very grateful for everything they've done to help us. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming out here to Walls of Books in Washington, D.C. tonight. And have a good night. And I believe the vice presidential debate starts in 59 minutes for those interested in watching.
Just one last thing I don't know. I have a video release. If you guys could put your name and sign, we had if you want to. I'm not saying do it, but a Yelp guy came and